There's a moment every man hits after divorce, and I definitely hit that for sure. It's not in the courtroom, it's not at 3 a.m. alone on the couch, but it's inside his own nervous system. He stands in the mirror and wonders why he feels like a stranger. Not because his circumstances changed, but because his state did. You can talk about growth, habits, and identity forever, but until you learn how to regulate your state, none of it sticks. This isn't a mindset fluff thing. This is engineering. This is frameworks. This is systems that most have never used in their life, or maybe they did in college and in sports. But when it came to real life, in real instances, it went to the wayside. I want to unpack that today. I want to show you some really simple things. So look, if any of you have enjoyed this podcast or it's been helpful in any way, drop a sub, share it, leave a review, and get this to more dads. There's a million dads out there that I believe that need to get transformed for their life and the next generation. You're a part of it. You're a piece of it. It's like 2 clicks, man. And I thank you in advance. I thank you for wanting to help other dads. I thank you for being generous. And I thank you in advance for being the man that you're called to be and the man that you're becoming. Those simple things goes way beyond me, dude, goes way beyond you and into something that is going to change another man's life. And that's where we're at. Let's talk about state, man. Let's talk about state. State is when you're in that blender. And I want to give you the neuroscience and some data about state so that you can really understand what the heck's going on. You know that. Like, I'm not here to give you all the tools and tactics. It's good to understand the environment you're in. It's good to understand what the heck's going on in your brain and why. And so I have a few things here to share with you. Okay. Most behavior is driven by automatic neural pathways. We've talked about this before. These are decades of patterns of thought that have wired together. What fires together wires together. It's been how you've wired. Fear, anxiety, worry, shame, belief systems, all of it. It's all been wired. Now listen to this. Recent research shows that over 66% of daily behavior happens via habit, automatic, contextual cues, not conscious deliberations. Not conscious deliberation. 66, almost 70% of the decisions that you're making are habit, automatic, contextual cues. You're not consciously making these things. They're programmatic. They're happening already. Why does this matter? Okay. Your state is not controlled by rational thought. It's driven by these neural habit loops that trigger these responses. So even when you intend to be calm, optimistic or disciplined, if your state engine is untrained, it defaults to survival mode. So again, it's like this: stress, cortisol, trigger response, emotion, and then there's a reaction, not a choice. Old routines, autopilot. This is why dads can know better but do worse. You ever figure that? You're like, man, I know all these things to do. Why didn't I do them? A dad recently, a client of mine, exact same thing. There was some things that he had shared with me. He was accountable to it. He was gonna do it. It was over the weekend. They were enemies that we've identified. They were clear targets that were up against him. And he went through it and he totally failed on both accounts. And he's texting me over the weekend. I blew it. I failed. This was blah, 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 blah. So we had to talk about it. I said, well, how many times have you been in that situation? You've been successful. He said, well, not many times. I said, well, how many times have you been in that situation and you've done the exact same thing that you did over the weekend? Most of the time, that's what I do. I said, okay. So you're wired to go in that direction. You're wired to make that choice. You're wired to do that habit again, right? So you have to interrupt the wire. You have to break the wire. And you also have to just be smart enough to not put yourself in those situations again. If you're trying to not drink and you've got all kinds of booze around the house, probably not a good idea, right? If you have a porn problem and you're out, at, strip clubs or, you're, out at the club, hey, probably not a good idea. So you've also got to become aware that the patterns that you have, they got to be broken differently. They can't just be, I'm going to stop doing this, because you would have stopped a long time ago. So Habits aren't formed by willpower, they're formed by repeated behavior in stable context. So the old 21-day myth is just pop psychology. Real habit change is about context, design, and repetition. I would say in that context, and the data will show it's about 20 days in that range for a habit, 63 for a transformed thought. That's where we're at. I'm at the 63 because when you have a transformed, as in Romans 12 talks about, not not doing the same thing, transformed a habit into a direction, into a clear choice. The thought has been transformed into something that's positive for you. 63. So a mind without state control is like a car with worn brakes. You intend to stop, but the system ignores you, man. That's exactly what happened with this individual. It's exactly what happens with another guy when he came and he started. We were texting it through, and he just said to me, "Man, I'm working out. I'm getting outside. I'm, trying to hang out with the right people." He goes, "But man, it's like every 2 minutes, I just keep thinking about failure." Why? Because that's what he's learned. That is the easiest thing for his brain to do. It's the least amount of energy. There's no strategy behind what he's doing. The state that he's in, even when he's doing something good or working out or whatever, it's a quick boom into this next, state for him. And he's like, "What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?" Well, we're going to talk about what to do. But again, I'd recommend going through the Gates of Change episode and listening to that, because before you take action, there's 3 other steps you got to take. And today we're going to get into story, or we're going to into state, which we are. Like, your state is going to control the story. We're going to get into story now. Why does your story matter? Right? Why does your story matter? So a story kind of went like this. There was a dad that I was coaching on paper. He did the right things, kind of like what I was saying before: gym every day, books on a shelf, cold plunges, you know, and there's a lot of guys like this. And a lot of guys will expend so much energy on external things because they've watched a new hype video of cold plunges, or saunas, or extreme workouts, or meditation, or all those things. However, they're on my page talking to me about stuff that isn't going right. And I was like, "Well, if it's all working, then what's the problem?" Well, here's the problem. The problem is their story. So in this case with this guy, gym every day, books on the shelf, fasting, all the cool stuff. But the second a text from his ex hit him, his state collapsed. He became reactive, defensive, ashamed, and just reverted to old patterns, man. This story, it could be an ex, it could be a photo that you see, it could be a destination that you went to. These are common story problems. I can't tell you how many times I hear from dads about their ex being a narcissistic, covert, all sorts, gaslighting, whatever you want to call it, all kinds of things. And it's affecting their story. And we're going to get into the next part after this about what's going on. But it affects their story, it affects their state, and they continue to create that loop. And they continue to try and do all these external things, when the reality is they have yet to deal with their story about what it means to them. Because state isn't what you know, it's what you're running in the moment. It works like this: habits are automatic even when intentions are good. Conscious intentions doesn't override a primitive habit loop. Okay? So again, Romans 12, don't be conformed by the patterns of this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You've got to replace the meaning of the story. I had a podcast interview with a friend. I'm not sure when it will be live, but we talked exactly about this, because he was blaming himself so much. And of course, it's always like, this sucks. My ex ruined me. My business is failing. How could this happen? And a friend of mine shared with me all those things he was saying, all those things I was saying. man, I can't tell you how many times like, God, are you serious? Like, this is what's going on right now. And then he finally just said, you know what? It's happening for me, and it's going to make me a better man, and it's going to make me a better dad. And you know what? I'm going to take all of it, and I'm going to use all of it, and I'm going to recycle all of it into the man that I'm becoming. And I was like, bro, that's the script. That's the story. Hello, thank you for the trash. I'm going to recycle it and make something useful out of it. Thank you. Thank you for, it feels like you kicked me in the nuts. Thank you. I felt the pain, and I'm thankful to be alive. Your gratitude, your thankfulness, your understanding, your awareness, that is the superpower that you have. And you get to choose. You can either choose to keep doing what you're doing, stay in the past. But I think down in your heart, you know the right thing to do. and it's hard. And you don't want to do it. And you don't want to feel like you're giving somebody else a win. But the real win is for you. The real win is you. The real win is that you're going to level up because of it. Renewal is not thinking differently once. It's training your state system to interpret stress as fuel, not threat. We're going to get into strategy here quickly, and then we'll finish up. And it's going to be great. So again, we start with state, right? Then we get to story. When your story shifts, when the meaning behind the story shifts, your strategy changes. You have a different look, right? So the internal physiological, emotional condition is your state. It's your current state. And one of the ways to get your state going differently is to move, is to get moving, is to work out, is to jump around, is to get that activity going, get those endorphins going so you can actually think clearer and have a strategy, have a story that's going to change. It's the narrative that you have about the story. Is this going to make you bitter, or is this going to make you better? Is the glass half full, or is the glass half empty? What's wrong is always available. So is what's right. If you believe you can, or you believe you can't, you're right. You get to choose. I'm not trying to steer you either way. You get to choose, man. You get to choose. So here's the tool that we can use. I'll give you some tools today. The neuroscience is going to show that emotional state follows physiology faster than thought. That's what I was reverting to. New research, breaking habits, emphasizes framing and reframing context, not sheer willpower. So again, an action step, one of the things that you can do, I would suggest, I know a lot of guys get into breathing and that's their thing, and that helps change their state. And if that works for you, then do some breathing exercises to change your state. For me, I find the breathing exercises make me fall asleep. So I'm a movement guy. I need to run. I need to work out. I need to change my state, my physiological state that way. And you can do it that way. So I do it that way so that I can think clearer and differently. So that's the first tool. That's tool number one. Your body is the command center. Change your state, change your mind. Okay. Tool number two, the narrative shift. This is about your brain. This is about, this story. So internal stories are not chosen. They're triggered by cues and learned narratives, right? Emotion follow beliefs, not events. What you believe is what you become. Your thoughts are the ancestors of your feelings. So here's a script. I'm triggered, but not broken. This feeling is temporary. What's true about this moment? What's true about this moment, not what I fear. So we got to interrupt the loop. We got to interrupt the story and the strategy, right? It's simple things, the meaning behind it. I want to give you things you can do right now to change this and start thinking it. And again, this isn't a microwave. It's not a 30-second quick scan and your brain's going to be there. I mean, you've had decades of thinking like this. So guess what? 21 days for a habit, 63 for a transformed thought. That's where you're at. And you're going to do it every day. And you're going to smile when you do it. And you're going to be a better man because you're going to break the loop. You're not triggered. You're not broken. The feeling is temporary. What's true about this moment, right? All those things. So here's the third one. Here's some context for habits. Most behavior is automatic. So build replacement anchors, right? Cue, routine, reward. So There's a couple books on this. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but that's essentially cue, routine, reward. So make the cue consistent, same time, same place, and make the routine simple. And then tie it to a reward that aligns with your identity, not pleasure reward only. So here's an example. Cue after kids drop off, right? 60 seconds of prayer, 60 seconds of breathing, and the reward, a sense of calm. I owned this morning, a win, a simple win. 60 seconds of prayer, 60 seconds of breathing, and a sense of calm. I owned the morning. So emotion drives behavior more than thought alone. And I'll give you this principle, and then we'll start to jump into the finish here. The brain uses automatic cues. So you gotta build identity aligned cues to make choices easier. I know for me, let me talk about a habit for me that was interesting was for a long time, alcohol was a reward for doing something great. It was like in business, something great happened, you pop a bottle or, a wine that you were saving or, a bourbon that was like, really rare that you got into. And that became a habit for me. It was, there was a cue, then there was a routine, and then there was a reward. And I was doing the same thing and I needed to change. I needed to get out of that. I needed a new routine. I needed a new reward. And I started using rewards that were more aligned with where I wanted to go because I got to have a reward. If I don't have a reward, then the cue and the routine doesn't make sense. And I started to use rewards of things that I enjoyed. So maybe it was golf, or maybe it was a massage, right? Or maybe it was a climb that I wanted to do or a hike that I wanted to do. And I started aligning those things differently. It was a reward and it was fun for me and it changed. It began to give me new habits in that because I used to be able to, there'd be times when I went home and at certain nights of the week, you go home, it's Friday, Saturday, you start pouring a drink and you start watching TV and that becomes a loop. And I wanted to break that loop. I didn't want to have that loop anymore. I needed to change it. I needed to change the story around it. Why am I doing it? Why does it matter? What's the meaning behind it? What am I going to do differently? Why do I keep doing this? And I know I don't want to do it, but I just keep doing it because, yeah, it does feel good. It is kind of numbing out and all of those things. What am I going to do differently and why? And what is the man that I'm becoming because of it? That's the questions you have to ask yourself. What do I want to teach my kids to do? What do I want them to do in those situations? What's a higher level? What's a higher standard? What's a higher strategy for that, right? So a couple things about behavior is that behavior change is not intention, it's action. You've got to do something about it. It is emotionally anchored repetition is the identity shift. In Philippians 4, verse 7, I recommend all dads need to know this verse. But the first part talks about being anxious for nothing. I mean, every day needs that. And then verse 7, it goes in, it says, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind. Peace guards state, not just thoughts. That's what I love about that verse. Peace guards state, not just your thoughts. So let's give a strategy challenge for you guys. 7 days, something else to do. If you haven't done the last couple of days, that's okay. Pick the ones that hit hard for you. Pick the ones that are going to matter for you, right? Each morning and evening, 7 days, I'm going to recommend to change your state. Change your state, either through breathing or through actively working out. Why? Because then I want a narrative check-in. 3 self-statements, a narrative check-in, right? Because then we want to have it an anchor, an activation. So what we're going to do for the next 7 days, train your state system, then your mind will follow. Change your state. What's the narrative check-in? What do you need to believe about the situation? What do you need to believe differently? What's possible? What's transformative? And then 3, anchor the activation. So it happens every day, right? Is it in the morning? Is it while you're in your car? Or can't do it in your car. You can't run around in your car. You can car dance, but you can't run around in your car. Car dancing is fun. I will say I'm a huge proponent of car dancing, but I don't think it's going to, I mean, it could change your state, a good car dance. Let me know in the comments or if you're a car dancer, if that's how you do it. But that's the overall theme for this, man. You're going to change your story. You're going to change your strategy. You got to change your state. Again, if this has been helpful, jump into Divorced Dads of America on Instagram. Let me know where you're watching, what's going on, any questions you have, any things you like to drill down more on, man. Other things that you want to hear about. There's gonna be some guests that start coming on that I think are really valuable and helpful. And obviously, my goal is to share stories where dudes are just bleeding their hearts out, and they've come through, and to give you some hope and some faith and some peace in the midst of the storm, and some real tools that you can use right now. So I love you guys. I'm thankful for you. I pray for you every day. God bless you, and I'll see you on the next one.